after 10 hours.
Right. They would be drifting in the stratosphere. I'm kind of reminded of, our theme tonight is spirituality and politics, and music, of course, is part of our spirituality. Think about Woody Gottlieb. He had a sign on his guitar, "This machine fights fascism." So that's what you guys are doing, what we're all into with our music and with our other forms of spirituality. I'm going to very briefly introduce our healers for the night. Over here, what are you doing, Catherine?
Oh, I'm painting a Pegasus unicorn
Okay.
with the purple glitter tail.
Unicorns and other things.
I'm doing body painting, celebrating all the colors that we can be. So feel free to visit.
Jason? Just readings.
Reading.
Yeah.
I can just come
If
in
you
and
haven't
do it.
experienced Jason, give it a try. She's got it going.
I do energy too. Reiki, all up, and reconnect.
And Jane's very tuned in right now, but you can just take a picture of her and get a sense of what she's doing. We encourage you to offer for offerings for our healers, a suggested $10 for 10 minutes, but you can work it out with others. And
Also, we have Aaron Stardust doing massage in the room on the left back there. Here's a sign-up sheet.
there's a sign-up sheet. And there's a sign-up sheet over there for the poetry circle later in the evening. Our event tonight happens just as Uranus retrograde is crossing the ascendant. Translation: don't expect what you expected, because it isn't going to happen. So we were going to have a feature speaker for tonight, Dr. Avi Ghosh. We just found out at 4 o'clock this afternoon that he's not going to make it. So we're going to go ahead with our panel, and I'll introduce them in a second. But I wanted to just backtrack a little bit. I met Avi 2 Chicagos back, and it was a series of synchronicities. I had been reading a book about the founder of the CIA. Oh my God, Alan, who was the founder of the CIA? Dulles, right, of course. Dulles and Dallas. And he was a pretty reptilian character. The CIA was founded with a lot of ex-Nazis, and they have had a nice career overthrowing democratically elected governments around the world, in different parts of the world. Well, anyway, the author was making the point that the Kennedy assassination was actually a coup, and members of the CIA, I was tracking the members of the CIA were involved. And I'm very committed to that belief. I've done a lot of study of that, and the story, the official story, makes absolutely no sense. The miracle bullet that went through 5 different angles through 2 different bodies, or the one person who was actually an ex-Marine who was considered a substandard marksman in the Marines, and he's firing an old World War II Italian carbine of defective design with a defective sight on it, and he gets off 3 shots within a space of time that no other person, including the best marksman in the world, has ever been able to fire 3 bullets from that gun in that space of time. So there's one thing after another. I was totally, so I know the official story about, and anyway, with that background, I'm reading this book, going back over that material, and I finished the book, I put it down, and I decided to check the news before I go to bed, and it's in Dallas, 2 blocks from Dealey Plaza, with the police being shot that night, and I knew that Spirit was tracking with me and telling me to pursue a story. So I come here and I meet Avi, and he is telling the story about we shall overcome in India through the Hare Krishna chants. And he wants to do a program on 911. And so we talked with Amy, and we set it all up to do the program tonight. And do is we're going to have our panelists introduce themselves with a little bit about the form of spiritual activism that their work has taken, political spiritual activism, and then we will gather, after each person has spoken for 3 or 4 minutes briefly, we'll separate us into small circles around each person and just have a discussion for 5 or 10 minutes. And then we'll go on to our dancing from that. But so, Amy, if you would like to start us off. I mean, there's a lot of yoga studios around Chicago, a lot of yoga studios around the world, but not many of them do the variety of things that you do here. And not many of them would have this kind of an event at their yoga studio. So do you want to tell us how you got on that path of integrating not only different cultures from India and so on with yoga, but integrating different levels of arts into your studio?
So Yogana was founded in 2003, and before that I had done a lot of travels and seen different parts of the world, and I wanted to bring that spirituality and art here to Chicago, and how it all integrates. People say we have a wide variety of programming, and the thing is, it's just what I think a normal yoga center should be. We have sweat lodges from a Native American elder, and it's someone that I hold very dear. He's fought in Vietnam, and he used the sweat lodges to cure himself of his own PTSD. So we do have the sweat lodges here as a form of healing, and I think it's important to have that variety. I've been to Burning Man twice, as Dave just got back from that wonderful outcropping of arts that are there. I would say we're a spiritual center undercover as a business in the city of Chicago.
Okay, thank you. And Sojourner, you want to tell us a little bit about your work?
Well, so I practice meditation primarily as my form of spiritual
Do you want to
path.
come up here and front of the group? Here you go, better.
Yeah, I meditate. Primarily, well, that's how I began my path. In 2003, I went to Naropa, which is a Buddhist-inspired university, and started Shambhala meditation, basic shamatha breathing, coming back to your breath. And then I studied different forms of meditation. Spent a few months in a Theravadan Buddhist monastery and really deepened in a lot of ways there. And then in the past few years, I've been studying with a woman named Joan Mage at Life Force Arts Center. She's a beautiful teacher, and she calls herself an urban shaman, and she essentially takes whoever comes to her space, asks a lot of questions, and helps you to develop your own connection with the unseen world or energy work. So I've been working with ancestors, working with energetic protection, shamanic journeying, drums, and developing in that path for about just a few years, maybe like 2 or 3 years. And in the past year, I've also become more politicized, involved in different activist spaces, going to protests, becoming more intentionally engaged in different movements, and kind of like navigating what suppose that's fine.
But you're on a spiritual path and a political activist at the same time. You don't find them contradictory.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So people want us to sit with Sojourner and discuss how we integrate those different sides of our life. And then we have Adam.
Hey everybody. First of all, sorry, just a logistical question. Is One Love gonna play after the discussion?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay. Okay. So hello everybody. My name is Adam, as you may know, and I'm grateful to be here. Honored to be on this panel and excited to talk about this topic. Really excited that this whole theme came up. And I feel moved actually first to share something. Does anyone know, on the topic of the CIA overthrowing democratically elected governments, does anyone know what the first September 11th was?
Pearl Harbor. Oh, no, it was, I remember. It was, it wasn't the Mormon?
I'll give you a hint.
The Mormon?
Chile, 1973.
Che Guevara.
Salvador Allende, democratically elected socialist president of Chile, was overthrown by a CIA backed coup. And that date this has been a day of mourning for, revolutionaries around the world since 1973, and it's been eclipsed by our own Patriot Day here in the States. I just wanted to start with that and offer, some intentions for that, as well as everything that is on our hearts. And there's so much that our hearts are heavy with tonight, I'm sure. But I was asked to share briefly about myself. I, like Sojourner, I'm in a lot of different groups. I think my main weapon, though, is One Love, is this band that I started a couple years ago that y'all are gonna hear after the discussion. We're gonna play, we're gonna dance, it's gonna be fun. But that's a project that's about spreading these messages, calling us to like really feel what human is, what it means to be human, and how we can create a world that is more human. And for me, spirituality and politics, far from contradicting, are really, I see them more and more as one and the same every day. And actually, it's what brought me back to the Judeo-Christian roots that my parents were raised with, and that's something else that we'll do a song kind of about that at the end of our set. But some of my work, other than One Love, is I write for the People's Tribune, as some of you know. A new one just came out, and they're right over there. It's a grassroots political paper designed to bring the movement together, so anyone can write for it who is engaged in any sort of struggle over basic needs such as food, water, housing. I mean, these are the things that we all know we can unite around. And if we can all have that, if we could all have the basic needs, couldn't we all have our spiritual needs too? That's kind of my vision, and something I think about a lot. Some points of interest in the New People's Tribune. I have an article, Sojourner has an article about a day of action that she organized last June, and there's an article from someone in Standing Rock that Diana solicited from some connections we made through the music scene in One Love, actually. So please, take that, donate if you can, $1. Even if you can't, just take it. Talk to me about that, or any of us. That would be great. I also co-founded a group called the Revolutionary Poets Brigade. So for poets and artists and rappers who are interested in this idea of revolution and what it means and how we change a whole system that a society works through. This is a space where we talk about that, and then we talk about what can we do as artists, as poets within that. And one of the things that we've been doing is, working with schools, and a whole separate project branched off of that called Operation Defend Education, or ODE, where we're trying to get the students writing poems about their experiences of being in schools, and then use that to kind of help the teachers and students movement in the fight for equitable education here in Chicago. There's actually a poem by a student at Harlem Community Academy High School in the new People's Tribune as well, from a workshop that we did. So yeah, that's just some of my work, and I'm excited to hear about what you're doing, and talk about the big questions.
So going back to 911, the event itself, when I started doing research about it, and I'm still not, I don't feel like I know what happened. I don't have a clear picture of who did what. I just know that something stinks.
Come on. Yes, it does.
And when it hit me first, the United States, we had the Air Force had standing orders that if an airplane was potentially kidnapped and looked like it might be flying toward a target to cause more damage than simply breaking down that airplane, that local base commanders in the Air Force would scramble their jets, and if the plane would not follow the directions of the Air Force pilots, they would shoot down that plane. That was a standing order. And it was at the discretion of local base commanders when they got, it would come from the civilians who were tracking the planes and saying, this plane is off course, we can't communicate with it, we're getting some other messages, there's something wrong. The Air Force jets would fly up and they would wiggle their wings, get in front of it, try to direct it. And if the plane didn't respond, then they would shoot it down. In June of 2001, those orders were changed, and the decision was taken away from the local base commanders and given to Dick Cheney, the vice president. Think about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. If you don't, if you're young, you don't have a sense of Dick Cheney, think reptile. On top of that, on the day of the event, there were 2 Air Force exercises that were engaged in. By coincidence, one of them up over the North Pole, and the other almost all the way to Europe. And we had almost no fighter planes in bases on the East Coast. Just happened to be happening that day. So some of the other things that have been cited in conspiracy theory are the idea that there was a controlled demolition. Technical experts have argued about that, and I don't have a sense of that one way or another. But I do know, I was able to track another story that I pretty much feel is verified, and we found out later where the money came from for the Saudis who came over here and became the pilots. And we can track that to the Pakistani